So now we'll learn how to spur our audience into action with storytelling. Our workshop facilitator is JD Brown. Jay is an international speaker and workshop presenter. She is widely known for her passion and humor. Jay was voted as audience favorite in the 2015 San Miguel de Allende International Storytelling Festival in Mexico. Jay loves delivering her messages through compelling and entertaining stories. After teaching for 15 years in the United States, Jay earned her master's degree in education. Shortly after that, she began teaching internationally in Japan, Germany, and Italy for a total of 16 years. She left the world of work at 56 years young and has never looked back. She's currently in the 6th year of an around-the-world journey that was meant to be 1 year. As Jay travels, she teaches high school students and young adults the basics of money management. She also teaches mature audiences the ins and outs of nomadic retirement. Jay has presented keynotes and workshops throughout communities in Germany, Italy, Argentina, South Africa, Thailand, Mexico, and the United States. Jay is super passionate about financial independence, around the world travel, and helping others to live outside the boundaries. She can teach it because she's living it. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our workshop facilitator. Spur your audience into action with storytelling, Miss Jay Brown.
How many of you, as a child, loved to hear a story? Wave your hand or wave to me. How many of you, as an adult, loves to hear a good story? Wave your hand. What is the first thing that you said when you were a child and your mother, your father, or your grandparent read you a story? The first thing you probably said, I can tell you, I'm kind of psychic here. You probably said, read it again. Read it again. Storytelling is the most powerful communication tool on earth. I believe that. There is a child, this is one of my favorite quotes. There is a child in all of us waiting for a story to be told. I still have that childlike wonder when I hear a story. I want to tell you, maybe 16 years ago, I was no longer than 16 years ago, I was in Japan. It was my first assignment. It was Thanksgiving time, and I was invited to dinner. I was single, still single, but I was single at the time, and I was invited to dinner at a friend's house for Thanksgiving, which is a big American holiday. It's time to go to dinner, and I am sitting on my sofa, and I am crying real tears. And the tears are coming, not because I'm miles away from my family, not because I'm lonely, not because it's a holiday and I'm not with my family. I am crying because E.T. can't get home. Now, for those of you who don't know who E.T. is, Steven Spielberg created E.T., and he's an alien who came to Earth, and he was left by his crew accidentally, and some young kids find him, and they're trying to figure out how to help him get home. And I'm sitting, and you know I don't miss a meal, and everybody who knows me on here knows I won't miss a meal. I am almost missing a meal because I'm crying because E.T. can't get home. That is the power of a good story. Now, let me tell you this. I had seen E.T. probably 10 times before, but that's the grown-up version of, can you tell it again? Can you tell it again? When you binge watch a movie over and over and over. And it's the same with The Notebook. Powerful story about love. That's what stories do for us. Let me tell you why, if you're a teacher or a business person. Some of the main reasons that storytelling can impact your life. It gets your audience listening. And teachers, listen to me carefully. It enhances memorability. If you have a topic that's difficult or a concept, if you tell a story, tell that through stories, it will enhance memorability. Stories help to deliver your content in unique ways. Raise your hand if you've had to deliver a boring topic. You had to do a presentation on a boring topic. Well, let me tell you, a story will help you have more creative way of delivering that topic. Whether you're in business or teaching in a classroom, stories make you stand out. Now, this is what Craig Valentine said. If you don't know Craig Valentine was the world champion of public speaking many years ago in Toastmasters. And this is his mantra. Make a point, tell a story. Make a point, tell a story. Make a point, tell a story. He says that whenever you have a point to make, you anchor it to a story. That will increase the memorability. I love storytelling. It's one of my favorite things to do. So I don't have much time. So let's start talking about how to craft a good story. You don't have to be, and Jon Jandai explained to us, you don't have to be a perfect speaker to be a good storyteller. Let me tell you, it was 16 years ago. I was sitting at home in my apartment in Italy, and I ran across Jon Jandai's video. My life, it impacted the trajectory of my retiring. I knew I was going to retire at 56, but I knew I was leaning toward minimalism, but he put me over the top. That video. And let me tell you, he said he didn't understand English well. He couldn't speak it well. He also talked about his shyness and how they tried to put him in a box before TEDx to teach him how to speak. But what he did was the most powerful thing. He didn't listen to that. He spoke from his heart, and his heart touched me thousands of miles away in Italy. That's the beauty of a good story. And that speech, because I watch it all the time, it has had 11 million views from a man who says he could not speak. So let's talk about crafting a story. First of all, you need to understand why you're speaking. What do you want to deliver from this speech? What feeling do you want? Do you want empathy? Do you want to talk fear? Do you want confidence? What is it you want to get from this speech that you're giving, or this talk that you're giving, this story that you're going to prepare? From there, let's say you want empathy. Then you figure out, what story can I tell that's going to induce a little empathy in my audience? You start from where you want to end up when you're trying to figure out what to speak about, what story to deliver. Let me tell you a story. Most people think that stories are simply a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's a little more to it than that, just a beginning, middle, and end. Here's a story. It's about Henry. Henry is a 10 or 11-year-old boy, long and lanky, skinny. Nothing but skin and bones, his grandmother says. He has a runner's body because you know what? He is a runner. He's the fastest runner in his school. He wears these glasses and he's constantly pushing them up on his nose. And his friends tease him and say, you know, if you cut that afro off, you could actually cut some time from your running, because he wore a huge afro. And they said it may be way too much for him to run. Every day on his way to school, this dog has shown up. There's a dog. And every day, this dog runs after him. He growls. And as soon as he sees Henry, he goes, "Rrr, rrr," and he's growling. And Henry, as soon as he gets to him, he takes off running every day. Well, Henry gets tired of this. He says, you know what? I'm getting sick of this dog. I'm going to find a brick or a rock and throw it at him, and he won't run after me anymore. Well, the next day, Henry gets up. He goes in his yard and he picks up this heavy, heavy rock. He puts it in his pocket. And he walks with confidence today. Usually when he sees that dog, he has to take off his glasses because he knows he's going to run. And he can't tell his mother he broke another pair of glasses. Today, he left those glasses on. And as he gets to the dog, pushes up those glasses, and the dog starts growling. And he pulls out that rock out of his pocket to hit that dog. And suddenly, he's in shock. He looks to the right. He lowers that rock. He looks to the left. Guess what Henry found out? That dog had no teeth. Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you, how many times in your life have you feared something and you discovered it had no teeth? Okay, cut that story. That's the end of a story. I use that story in different versions of it when I'm giving different speeches depending on the audience. But let's break it down into beginning and middle and end. The beginning of a story has to set the stage. This is where you give the context for the story. You set a place, you set a time. And let's see if I did that. I talked about Henry. So you feel like he's an African-American. He has an afro. He's of African descent. He has these glasses on his face. He's a runner. That's important because he has to run every day from this dog. And he is surrounded. He takes his glasses off of his face. So you understand the circumstances. That's what you do to set the stage for the story. You get your audience prepared for what's coming up. What is the middle of a story? The middle of a story is it introduces conflict. That's where the conflict comes in. Every story must have a conflict because you must have a conflict. What is the conflict in this story? That growling dog. Now, in the beginning of the story, we don't know that the dog doesn't have teeth. We think here's this ferocious dog who's growling and running every day after Henry. So the ending of the story gives us what? Relief, a resolution to the conflict. That's what a good story does. You have to have a turning point. And the turning point is when Henry lifts up that rock and he puts it down. We don't know yet why he's putting it down, but slowly he puts that rock down. What is the theme that is common to everyone listening to this story? What do you think is the theme? Everyone who's listening to this story now and watching me, you have all experienced this thing. And this thing is fear. So when you're picking a story and you're picking a theme, try to make it something that the whole audience understands. Because we all understand fear. We've all been there. Never, ever, ever, ever tell the audience where you're going. It's a journey and you're taking them with you. You don't tell them where you're going. You take them on that journey with you. And that's every word from the first story, from the first of your story to the last word should guide the audience to your point. Every word. It's guiding, you're building up, you're guiding to the point. So try not to give too much detail when you're building and crafting a story. Here's the thing. I could have told you, because I tell a longer version of this when I'm talking to children, and an even shorter version of it when I'm talking, depending on the group of adults. But I could have told you that Henry's father was an engineer. His mother was a teacher. They lived on the edge of town near a forest. I could have done all of that, but that's not germane to my point. None of that has to do with fear. So I left that out. When I tell the story for a different reason, then I add the things that I needed. So figure out what you want to tell your audience and do that. So that's how you craft a story, beginning, middle, and end. The beginning sets it up. It sets the stage for everything. The middle is where you introduce the conflict, and the ending is the conclusion, is the resolution of that. Now let's talk about, we only have a few minutes. Let's talk about performance techniques. And you're wondering, well, why are you talking about performance? Well, believe it or not, storytelling is a performance. So let's talk about some of the things that you can do to enhance your storytelling. First of all, we're on Zoom these days. So now I have to talk about a whole different level of preparation. Zoom. The first thing I did this morning was I signed on with my team, my Toastmaster team, and I set my stage. Because here's the thing. I'm standing right here because I know that I'm in the middle. If I move over to here, it's okay because I won't be off the screen. If I move over to here, I'm good. I won't be off the screen. I had to set my stage because I didn't know how I presented. And so I needed, right on the floor here, I have a middle and I have 2 points, two pieces of tape that let me know, don't move further than this, don't move further than that, because guess what? You won't be able to see me. Another thing is I have this sticky here. Oh, I'm losing it. You see that little sticky here? Sometimes when you're presenting on Zoom, you forget where your audience is. Your audience is not here because you can see all of the people's faces and everything sometimes on here. You're here, right in the lens of the camera. When you're speaking to an audience, you're speaking to the lens of the camera because that gives you connection, that gives you that eye contact that you need. So those are just some of those zoomy things you have to think about. And you also need to understand about how getting close, if you're going to make a point and moving backwards. Really, I kind of like Zoom for that. I like to have an audience in front of me. I live for an audience. But if I can't, I can do some things that I couldn't do with an audience. I can move back and forth. I can get in your face when I'm trying to make certain points. Here's number one thing you should do. Adapt and improvise your story. Don't try to remember a story word for word, because you know what? You won't be able to deliver it. Deliver it, practice it, but deliver what you know. Don't worry about word for word. Understand the concept, know how you want to deliver it. And it doesn't matter what words you use, as long as they come out and give you the point. So adapt and improvise. Tell yourself the story tell the story in your own words, even if it's someone else's stories. And as Jon Jandai said, some of the best stories are your own stories. You won't mess up on a story that's about you, about an experience you had. Use your life. Trust me, if you're over 10, you've got stories. You have stories that you can develop based on any concept you want to develop it on. Let your body speak. If you have movement, especially when you're speaking to children or even to teenagers, if you tell a story, use your hands. Raise that brick. Look from left to right when that dog is close to you. Use your body, and that will be a more compelling story. Use your space, the space you have. You can walk up, you can walk back. If you're on a stage, a real stage, and speaking in person, one of the things I suggest that you do is get there early and know your stage. If you're comfortable with where you're speaking, don't just show up and expect to speak. If you know the environment that you're going to be speaking in, you'll be a better speaker. You'll be a better storyteller. Get there early. Stand on that stage. Move about on the stage. Have your own little personal practice session. That is key to telling a great story. If you notice, when I talked about Henry and he raised the brick, if you notice, I paused. Then I looked left, then I looked right. Be able to use pauses. Pauses are powerful in stories. Pauses pull you in when you're telling a story. Don't rush your story. That's number one. Don't never rush a story. Make sure that your story fits in the time frame you're given to speak, but don't rush it. And if that means leaving some things out so you can take your time and deliver it slowly, then so be it. That's what you'll do. If you notice that story, some of you may have noticed that story when we're talking about what are some of the things that you can do as a story, where you can get stories. That story is not mine. That story is Les Brown's story. He's told it 1,000 times. I improvised and changed it for my use. His story is a young man walks to school every day, and every day he has to face this dog, and this dog is growling. And one day he says, I'm getting sick of this dog, and I'm going to pick up this brick and hit him with it. And the next day he went and lifted up the brick. I added a little more. I gave the boy a name. I called him Henry. I made him a runner because I thought that enhanced the story a little more. You can use other people's stories, but make sure you give them credit for it. So I wanted to make sure you understood that that was the basis of that story, was definitely Les Brown's story. I can't see how I'm doing on time. So if someone can let me know verbally how I'm doing on time.
Wrap up.
I didn't hear.
We can wrap up.
Okay, yes. So here's the thing about storytelling. And Jon Jandai said it perfectly. You don't have to be the best speaker. Your English, his 11 million view video proved you don't have to have the best English speaking to give a story. You can also tell a story that's about your life because you'll be more comfortable talking about it. Use personal stories. They're an excellent resource for storytelling. There's so much more I can tell you about storytelling. But for now, I think you may have enough to get you started on telling your stories, delivering your message, and owning your audience. Thank you all.